Is that hero making top 8, and where is all of the Sword Soul players for this event? I think with 30% of you guys have not smashed the yellow crab subscribe button, smash it so we can climb up the 100k ladder. We have a very interesting breakdown for you guys for this event because there is no Sword Soul players in Top Cut. This event kind of got ran around by some very punk-oriented decks here. So we're actually going to have two classifications of punk for this Top Cut here, which, interestingly enough, is Punk Synchro, which is actually getting kind of branded as the new base deck, because the Punk Synchro deck is just using the Synchro package as a means to climb up and do its shenanigans that it really wants to do. All right, so imagine in previous iterations with Based here, where you saw that the deck would climb up and build these relatively big boards, and you're doing the exact same thing with what is classified as Punk Synchro / Based at this point in time. So it is kind of nice to see that that is how that deck is overlapping here. And then we had the Punk Thurion deck. Once again, you're kind of using that same Punk engine in the same way as other decks, but you're extending out the package, and then you get access to, you know, the adventurer stuff as well, which is actually very nice overall. Trust me, you can put all of your good stuff in one little bundle, take advantage of things, you do so. We also had 2 Despia in Top Cut for this event, which not all that impressed to see that that's what's going on, you know, in terms of advantage, raw, diversibility, not bad. And then we also have 1 virtual world in Top Cut as well. And then we had 1 hero player kind of bringing things out here and showing the world that hero can still function. I know, right? In the year 2022, even after all the restrictions, hero is still getting the chance to get some love here, which actually is kind of nice. Let's pass it on over for some deck lists, shall we? The first deck we're going to be looking at here for our top 8 is none other than our Punk Extension Out Based 2.0 deck here. And you do see in this deck how you are using, you guessed it, your Synchro package to kind of climb up and make these boards. Also the fact that you have access to none other than the famous Scythe Lock in this deck to kind of devastate your opponent is really, really fun. You know, as a limitation on the Rose Dragon package, which basically helped this deck out immensely, by the way. Nah, just kidding. It actually, if they had not restricted the Rose Dragon shenanigans, I think things would have been a lot more toxic for, you know, the base deck. So Konami actually looked ahead relatively well, and they basically strapped on some limitations to this deck, so this deck wouldn't have been a lot more toxic at the end of the day. So I'll give Konami credit for that. Doing some very up-head restrictions saved us from dealing with the craziness for this deck. Next up here is our Thurion Punk list. Now, similarly to the other variant here, you still will be able to do synchro shenanigans with this deck, but what we're doing here is we're extending out our Thurion package so that you can do, well, you know, things that you want to do with it, all right? Having the Thurion package in here gives you access to Duke Jewel, you get access to the Duke Ein as well, and then you get Borea, and then you basically just get a draw package with some extra steps. I mean, you're still playing the adventure package in here, which is actually relatively nice. Also, you can see that this build cut back on the right of Armisia here to extend out the faithful stuff, so you can kind of generate some more advantage, which, all things considered here, having those extra faithfuls in this deck might actually matter all that much, because having access to pulling a Griffin Rider or an Illegal Knight as a acting level 7, so you can climb up and then, you know, mill off like a Water Enchantress or something, depending on how you open up, is actually really good. Next up here is another version of what we just saw, but are you seeing all the differences here? The other build was not playing Super Poly in this, or well, not playing Emergency Teleport here. So you have 3 different takes here, and 2 big ones here for the extension changes between the other builds. Do keep in mind here that we are playing triple Borea in this build versus the other build where we saw just 1, and this build is only playing 2 Regulux instead of extending out fully to 3. I also see that our Punk engine pretty much remains close to same here. We are also playing triple of the discard of Thurion Draw 2, which is in fact restricted to once per turn, but this build is focusing more on taking advantage of the Disc Coliseum stuff, which you basically want to do. Outside of that, same synchro shenanigans, same ability to do things, and then of course Malaya of the Trees with the Rose Whip shenanigans. Some of my more favorite stuff, so you gotta love to see it. Next up here is our virtual world list for this event. Yes, this is the first time that I have seen Virtual World coming back, not as a pure hybrid, but with the adventure package on its back. This actually kind of gives this deck the chance to, you guessed it, play the game. Having an Omni Negate so that you can set up your board and maintain some sort of presence is very, very solid. This build is also playing the Shooting Riser Dragon in here, so you can mill off, say, the Token Collector or the Fairy Tale Snow, so you can set up those lines of interruption so you can do your thing. It's very important to know that those cards actually come up as access points for your deck, and it's very, very impressive that those little niche interactions have become your more holding points for this deck. So outside of that, I don't see anything else really too crazy for this, because this feels, once again, very standard for the merge build. All right, next up here is we have our other synchro package here. This build is playing the Rocket package. So this is like Rocket Synchro at the end of the day here, I guess. We're still using our Punk Synchro package, but like I said, the base deck is evolved so far in terms of things. And as you can see here, you're using the Rocket package to kind of climb up and do things. So what would you classify this as? Like, I still think that this is like still a Punk Synchro deck, because you still want to be able to climb up and do things, but we have Borland and things in here as well for overall structuring. So, you know what? I'm going to give it to these little turbo build decks. All right, that little Punk engine makes or breaks so much in terms of these developments that it's actually kind of crazy what you can do, ladies and gentlemen. Not too bad. Next up is our first Despia list here, and to be honest with you, this is pretty standard. All right, we are seeing double McCourier here versus, 3 that we saw in the very early stages here, and we are playing triple copies of Allure of Darkness. I also see Theater in here. Man, Theater is sometimes hit or miss in some of these decks, which is kind of sad actually, because I do like what Theater gives to this deck. Also, double Brandon in red. I know some people have recently tried to really push 3 of that. No Alba Lenatus in this deck. No real need to get really too crazy with that. Triple Patchwork is fine. Triple Edge Imp Chain, standard. And of course, this deck just wouldn't be the same without playing Fairy Tale Snow. I don't see anything else. I like how we're playing Spriggan and Brigand in here. All right, so you'll get access to being able to handle the good fusions that you really need to with that. Next up here is our other Despia list. Now, this is where things kind of get a little bit more interesting. I see here that we are playing a Magician Soul sub-package in here as well, and we're also playing Lord of the Heavenly Sky Prison in here, so that we can pull out an anti-spell fragrance or protector anti-spell fragrance. This is actually kind of a very interesting pile of cards. I also like the fact that we have the 1 Golden Lord in here as well, so you can kind of take a little bit more advantage of having an extra free revive. I mean, you have plenty of spell cards here that you can, discard. We also have that triple Allure of Darkness, triple McCourier that we've seen in the very early stages of this deck's development. So, pretty standard, all real things considered here. I find the use of like the more little combo pieces for this to be a little bit more interesting. And then the last one we have here is Hero. Yay, Hero! Fusion Destiny Shenanigans, my favorite. We are playing Plasma in here with 1 Denier. It's fine. I mean, you basically want to be able to see that. We are playing the 1 Dark Angel on the side deck. That was pretty standard for most list up until, the very beginning. And then I see that we also have more of 1 Crossout Designator. That's very strange to me. Okay. Honestly, outside of that, this hero list feels very, very standardized. And I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not really surprised to see that. Like, you don't get a lot of like developability, I guess. But Only one cross-out feels a little bit weird to me. So what do you guys think about the breakdown here for this case tournament? Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. We should guys smash the crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. I'll see your beautiful faces back at the end of the day, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.